Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, everyone. Good evening and Ramadan Mubarak. We are happy again to be with you in our Ramadan CSR webinars. And today we have a very, very, very special and amazing webinar. Let me tell you about that in a bit. But first, let me introduce you to myself. My name is Qasim Arafat. I'm one of the one of the lucky humans to be working with CoreReach. I work as a magnet, electronic builder, and joy infuser, one of the many roles I enjoy doing in CoreReach. And today, I'm very lucky, not only because we're facilitating with amazing Miss Andrea, but also I'm lucky to be co-facilitating with my co-worker, Sarah Zamriq. Sarah, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. We're so happy to have you with us tonight. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah Zamdiq. I'm another lucky person and happens to be a co-reacher. I'm a translator, content creator, and I work in the marketing team. I'd like to introduce co-reach as well for you. We are a coaching firm and platform that serves businesses and individuals. I would like to say and describe us as a group of passionate advocates who came together to prioritize the growth of the human elements within people so that together we build the world we aspire to reach. And co-reach exists to serve humanity. That is our purpose and that is our why. And that's why we serve two main audiences. We serve the individuals as a platform and we serve the businesses as the firm. And for us to introduce ourselves as a platform, I'll give the platform for my colleague Qasim.
Thank you. Okay, so as Sarah mentioned, our purpose at Courage is to in life and enliven the human element. And in our platform, we look forward to deal with every single individual, with every single human. We all have humanity within us, but maybe want to fire it up, maybe want to live it more, maybe want to spread the humanity, the joy, and the growth within everyone. So at Platform, we look forward to do that by having coaching sessions, by certifying people to become coaches, by providing opportunities to grow and become more and aligned with your humanity, core values, with what you have and with what you want to achieve in your life. At Platform, individuality, humanity, we speak both and we look forward to achieve both. This is basically in a very short term for the platform. As for the firm, give it back to my friend Sarah. Go ahead.
And, and as a firm, we exist and we collaborate with businesses to help them highlight their purpose, their why, and why they're serving the people they're serving. We help them lay the foundation of a we culture that develops their workforce at all levels and helps them create a humane and psychologically safe space full of creativity, effective performance, and especially full potential. And that's where we come to help leaders and teams connect with their human side to create a sense of unity, connection, safety, and everything that fosters their growth. And because we exist here to serve humanity, every year we serve the community and we deliver a series of workshops and talks that embrace different values. And this year, our theme is purpose and fulfillment. That's where we come together and we invite people to help us find the roots and the purpose and our why. And today I would like to welcome a very, very special person, Coach Andrea Garfield. I'll give you a small brief about her, although I don't think it's going to be very fulfilling. Andrea is the CEO and coach of Awesome Institute, a coaching company based in San Francisco. I'd like to say, mashallah, that she has a very rich career and history. And she and her team of coaches are on a mission to help people be more human at work. And I think that's something we all have in common in courage between us and Awesome Institute. And they use integral coaching techniques, presence, and that's our topic for the day, love and play to bring humanity to leadership. I'd like to welcome Andrea. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And yes.
Yes. So thank you so much for, of course, Thank you for coming with us. And before we start our meeting, guys, I would just like to remind you that just kick back, relax, have a pen and paper, and our Courage team and Couragers will be here to fully support you. We have Nuran and Sarah to support you technically. If you have any technical issues with the Zoom, with the link, with the voice, you can easily just text for our tech support, Nuran or Sarah. And also we have Farida. She's gonna be handling the questions and answer and chat support. Make sure, guys, when you type something on the chat, you choose all the panelists and attendees. If you only wrote message for all panelists, we only can see it, but not everyone. And we really value our input and your input. So please make sure that you click on all attendees and participants. And without further ado, we look forward for this meeting and this amazing question and the co-growth we're gonna have today. So, Sarah Zambiq, the floor is yours.
Okay. So, Andrea, thank you so much. I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. And here we go with our first question to you. Now, we all have our own definition of everything in life. How would Andrea define presence, and how does being present in the moment look like to her?
That's a great question. I don't know if I can define presence for everyone, but for me, I think it's about being able to be in the moment and experience the moment. And I think about that mentally, emotionally, physically. I think a lot of people don't consider it to be a physical thing, and for me, it tends to be very physical. So how am I experiencing the moment, whether it's nature, an interaction with another person, my own internal experience? I find the more present I am, the more I can be aware of all of those things and how they're working together. And that's, for me, such a more rich experience than just focusing on the other person or just focusing on my own experience or thinking about what I'm doing later or feeling something that happened before. And for me, when I think about a lot of the best moments in life, there are those moments when I'm the most present, the most experiencing just what's happening right now. And I already forgot the second part of your question.
No worries, no worries. So the second question is, how would presence look like to you? How would a person feel, act, and think when they're present in the moment?
I think it's just being really in tune with everything that's happening at that moment. So, as a coach, I want to be very aware of what's happening for my client and, of course, what's going on inside of me so that I can not just be focused on them, but also notice my own experience, my own reactions, and I can decide what to do with them. And I think when I was a newer coach, I didn't really fully intuitively understand the importance of that. I thought it was about being really focused on the other person and being a very good listener and being right there with them. And I didn't really understand how my own internal experience can really affect that. And as I continue to coach, and I think I'll always be a beginner, but as I do it more, I realize more and more how important that is to the quality of the connection, to the way that I can show up. I have to be aware of what's going on for me as well.
Andrea, you mentioned that presence. You mentioned in the presence, it gives this quality. I'm just wondering, if you were to share with us, what is the real value of presence and having that presence? What value that would make the difference in people's lives?
I think going back to our shared focus on humanity, that really so much of being a human is about, there are philosophers that would argue that the present moment is all that there is, right? And it is, it's what is beautiful, it's what is valuable, it's what is connecting, it's what is helping us to survive in the world, it's what helps us feel safe, all of these things. obviously we refer to our past and we are looking to the future, but it's only this moment that matters. And so when we can be super present with ourselves, in nature, in our work, with another person, I think that's really where all the most beautiful things happen. And it's so rare that we're actually able to be present with another person in most of life that it feels almost like a shocking experience. And so when I was doing my coach training, very early on in the training, they matched us with a stranger. They brought them into class and said, okay, you're going to go coach this person for like 30 or 40 minutes, not very long. And we were like, all of us were like, we don't know how to coach yet. We don't know what we're doing. We can't do this. And we went and we had a conversation with people individually, and most of us thought it was terrible. And we came back and we sat in the back of the room, and they had all the clients sitting together. And the teacher started asking them, how was this experience for you? And they all said, this was one of the most impactful experiences of my life. Many people said, this was the first time I really felt like someone was with me and listening to me and connected with me in my entire life. And we were all sitting there shocked. Like, we don't know how to coach yet. We don't know what we're doing. Didn't matter. It was such a great lesson, because you can have all the techniques and all the learning and read all the books and take all the classes. But really what people want and need to grow, to feel safe, to connect, and to become the next version of themselves, which is so much of what we're trying to do in coaching, just by being present with them, just by giving them your undivided attention, not judging, just being with. And I get that lesson all the time with my daughter, who's almost 4. Like, the present moment is her world, right? She's not thinking about what happened last week. She's not wondering what's going to happen next month. Like, she's just like right here, right now. And she's been my best coach in presence by far, because she always reminds me, come back to right now, be here with me. I mean, she'll get in my face and get my attention if I'm not with her, right? And so it's been just this beautiful training for me to like be in the moment and to carry that to different parts of my life, because we all know people that make us feel like we're the only one in the world at that moment, or we've had those experiences, and it's just so transformative, I think. And it's really what we need, I think, as humans to grow. Without that, you know, we've probably all had those experiences too, where we're in a class, school, nobody really cares if we're there or not. They don't really care about our experience. And this is just the opposite of that, of, you know, you matter, we're here together, we're experiencing the world together. And I think that's the most important thing that there is when humans are together.
I love what you said, especially the part the kid. Really, kids can be the perfect example for the actual present in the moment. I really
Yes.
appreciate
I'm actually a very, very firm believer that being present in the moment makes a huge difference in our life. It shapes our world in a very different way. But the more we get to explore something, the more stories we have to tell about it. And those stories start flowing like a river. And I'd like to ask you, what stories does Andrea have on presence? And what lessons did she learn having experienced that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, stories are another thing that can interrupt our presence. Actually, that was actually the first thing that came to mind when you started talking about stories, is that we can notice that we're believing a story or telling a story about an interaction, or replaying our old stories. Sometimes stories can be really meaningful and teach us really great lessons, and sometimes they can keep us from being in the moment. You know, I think when so that story I just shared is one of the big learning lessons for me with presence. I practice, you know, with my daughter, as I mentioned, and I also think that animals, pets, are a really amazing way for people to experience presence and sort of that like unconditional being with. It doesn't even have to be unconditional love, but I think actually presence and unconditional love are so similar that it can be kind of hard to even tell the difference when there's this complete lack of judgment and acceptance and being with and also capacity to hold what's happening in the situation, that all make it so similar. So I'm not sure if I have any really great stories about it, but I think there are a lot of experiences we have as humans that help us to experience presence and really practice presence. I think of presence as very much a practice rather than a thing I have or a thing I do or I'm trying to do. It's like we're all just practicing it and deepening it and learning new ways of being with things.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Andrea, I can't help but I'm thinking of what you said earlier about sometimes like in the present we keep thinking about the past and everything and we live there. And I know how much this can be crippling sometimes because if someone have like a past, they just live by day, year by year, they're limiting their moment. And with that past, they actually limit their future because like the future is not gonna be there, it's not gonna do that, it's not. So it's either I'm stuck at the past or I'm just stuck at this picture of the future. I'm either there or there, I'm never in the moment. And this happens a lot. And so how would someone can really let go? Because we know like there are some steps that you can do at the moment to be present in the moment and everything, but it's like a little time and then you're back to that path, that limiting, crippling ideas and mindset. So what would you actually do or advise for someone to actually let go and be free from all of these, like let's call it like a cell or something like that?
Yeah, if I knew the perfect thing to say to that, I think that would be amazing. I think what I do, my approach to this is try to find what that going to the past or going to the future is doing for you. Like that part of you that wants to relive an experience or that wants to be worrying about the future or however you're relating to the past and future, and to say like, what is that trying to do for me? Is that trying to keep me safe? Is that trying to help me not make that mistake again? Is it trying to like, what's it trying to do for me? Instead of shoving it away, how do we bring it close and say, oh, like this is a way that part of me is trying to help me, and I can have compassion for that, and I can have understanding and gratitude even, right? If we didn't ever think about the past or the future, we would probably be living these very reckless lives. So, and never learning from our experiences or our mistakes or our successes or whatever. So I think when we can do that as a first step and we can bring that compassion in, it's less about shoving that part of us away and trying to be in the moment and then getting pulled back, and it becomes this sort of tug of war. So I think as a first step, that's a really great thing to do. And then, which is much easier said than done. That can be a life's work, right? And then seeing coming back to the present moment as actually the work, as the practice. So when I was first learning to meditate, I was talking to a teacher and I was like, I'm a terrible meditator. My mind is 99% of the time on other things, and very occasionally am I in the moment. And she said to me, it's the bringing your attention back that is the thing. It's not being necessarily in this perfect state of meditation or presence. Like when you're going to the gym, you were talking a little bit earlier about going to the gym. It's not like that moment when you're holding the big weight. It's you're doing reps, you're practicing, you're strengthening that muscle every time you lift a weight, every time you do an exercise. And so every time we bring our attention back from the future, from the past, from whatever, that's the work, that's the practice. And instead of being like, oh, I lost my attention, I noticed, and now I'm going to bring it back, to be like, oh, I noticed, I'm doing the thing now, I'm bringing my attention back. Like that's the success, and that's the practice and the richness. And as we do it, we can spend more and more time in presence as we get better at it. But for me, that was a real big moment of, oh, it's not this perfect state of whatever. It's the practice of coming back to yourself and coming back to the present moment. And I think of humanity as like this too, as a way of coming back to our humanity. I think, as we've already talked about, children have this don't want to say perfect presence, but like they're born with presence and they have this presence, and it's sort of trained out of us over the years. As we get older, it becomes harder to reconnect with that. And so we have to practice reconnecting with our humanity. We have to remember our own humanity. And that isn't just a thing that happens. It's work like anything else. It's practice like anything else. We have to build that muscle, and it gets easier. When you first go to the gym, it's not very fun, and it hurts the next day, and you're like, why am I doing this? And after a while, it gives you energy, and it's fun, and it's, you feel strong and you feel healthy, but it doesn't happen that way at the beginning. And I try to remember that and help my clients to remember that all of these new things are just like that. It feels like it's never going to get any easier, and it's so hard. And then slowly but surely it does, until you get to the point where you can actually have quite a bit of fun with it.
What you have just said, it really amazed me, because it really, it's about bringing the attention back, and it's about this exercise and building your muscle of the brain, actually, because it's, as you mentioned, it's something that you practice of coming back. Wow,
Exactly.
that's a lot. Thank you for that.
Exactly. And Andrea, I loved how you said that it works in different contexts. If we were to take this and apply it in the context of leadership, how can a leader exhibit presence with their teams?
I think leadership, one of the things that's so challenging about leadership is you're having to do so many different things with so many different people to lead the team in a direction, but also be with people. You're having to really manage the future and the past and the present, and so many different types of people. And that requires quite a bit of muscle, for what we were just talking about. Like, to be able to be in the moment with an individual, or to be in the moment with a team, I think can be quite challenging, especially under stress. And most of what we're doing as leaders is dealing with stressful situations, driving sales, dealing with conflict, managing risk, grabbing opportunities. Like, there's so many things we do that are stressful, whether it's positive stress or more challenging stress. And I think presence under stress is, I was going to say sort of like a different animal, but it's just harder, I think, because when we are under stress, we go back to our more human responses, right? Our limbic brain kicks in, we do all these things, our brain works differently, our emotions work differently, our nervous systems work differently. And so what works when we were calm doesn't work when we're under stress. Our body thinks there's a tiger in the grass getting ready to jump on us, and our body is wired to respond in a way that is going to save us from the tiger, not necessarily what's going to be helpful in a meeting. We're not built that way. Our nervous system doesn't work that way. So we have to be able to, when we talk about helping people be more human at work, it's not just like the shiny parts of humanity. It's actually the fact that your body, brain, emotions work in ways that are not well suited for our work world. And when you understand that, you can do things differently, and you can practice in different ways instead of trying to. What we found is a lot of things where you feel like you have to force yourself to do things a certain way, or, gosh, I always struggle with this thing. We're often getting caught up in our biology and our nervous systems that are trying to do something different, that are trying to be helpful. Right? It's like that part of ourselves is trying to be helpful by warning us about the past again, or scaring us about the future. This is the same thing. It's just on a nervous system level. So when we know how to settle our nervous systems, we can start to function in ways that we do when we're calmer and less stressed. So I'm not sure if this is making sense, but when we can kind of decode the way that humans work, we can build our responses in a way that are more helpful, and we can, and a big part of that is presence, right? We're not present in the moment when the tiger's like getting ready to pounce. We're like, oh, I feel the soft breeze on my cheek, and I can hear the tiger growling, and I'm totally enjoying this moment. In some ways, we are very present because we're very alert to what's going on, and in some ways, we are only focused on certain things. We're hyper focused on certain things. So when the tiger goes away and we can settle our nervous systems, it's great. one of the challenges that leaders have is they're basically under chronic stress. So when it's tiger, 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 tiger all the time, and your body doesn't ever get a chance to rest and recover and calm down, then we're trying to be present with a nervous system that can't be present because it's trying to survive. And we have a lot of challenges then with presence. So sometimes when I work with leaders that are really having a hard time with presence, the answer isn't necessarily try harder. It's how can you settle your nervous system first and then try again. And that might be taking a break. It might be taking deep breaths. It might be doing physical centering. It might be doing a very brief meditation, whatever it might be. Those are the kinds of things that can really increase presence with leaders and teams and whatever's happening in the moment. Does that make sense?
It does make
Absolutely perfect sense.
Okay, so if I was, since I'm handling with the platform and being the coach and everything, I know how at the beginning as a coach, it's like you focus on trying to focus on the client, don't get in your inner monologue, like what's happening, what should I ask next? You know, we all go through this. I know I did, but I would love to hear from you. As a coach, when you go through that, like at the beginning, when you started your journey as a coach and everything, and you had that, like you are a coach, and then you started going in your inner dialogue, and you're not focused anymore on the coachee, and you're just like, whoa. So what did you do? What was the learning or the experience or the tips that you can give us as a coach for the fellow coaches within the audience, like that help you to avoid that, or maybe, you know, getting back to the presence when you are doing the coaching session, and how can you minimize it in the future?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, for me, it was having to stop trying to be smart and to stop trying to be helpful, which is sort of tricky because as a coach, you're supposed to be helpful. You're supposed to know things. And I'm sort of using be smart loosely, but like, they say things and I say a smart thing and then they have a epiphany and then everything's better, right? Like in this imaginary world of coaching. And I think, for me, letting go of that and just being in the moment with them and trusting that things will happen was partly a function of just coaching a lot. So one of the, recommendations I have for early coaches is just go coach a lot. You don't have to be a great coach to coach. You don't have to charge a lot of money. You don't have to coach very specific people, but like go just coach a bunch of people and you'll learn that you're fine. Like being with people is enough. You'll think of things sometimes you won't, sometimes it doesn't matter. And taking that pressure off is a way for a lot of the magic of coaching to happen. And I think a couple of other things for me, my business partner always says, just be a lamppost. Sometimes people need to talk and they just need someone to be there, like talking to a lamppost. Like you don't have to be smart and you don't have to be anything. You just have to be there and be with them. And oftentimes like that is actually enough. For me, what that actually does is it takes the pressure off of like having to do a thing and I can just be a thing. And then things happen. So that's super helpful for me. And I forgot the other thing that I was going to say.
No worries. What you have said so far is really amazing, and I read that somewhere, and I learned something about like when you are in a flow with the conversation with your client, you're so in the present. Um, how would you know that you have lost it? It's when you notice that you are in the present, you kind of lost it. When you notice that you are in the flow, you kind of lost that flow.
Yeah.
So let's just say like when you have that and you are in a coaching session and you are like being a lamppost and everything, and then you are in your back again and you are in your head back again. So what do you do usually like to zoom out, focus again, besides being like as an action steps, like stop being smart, stop being helpful? How does it look like on an action based of Andrea?
Yeah. So for me, what I notice is that the energy in my body and sort of the tension is like up here. It's sort of forward in my shoulders and neck and head. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh, I gotta, even when you did that, you were like, you kind of pointed, right? Like going to the other person. And for me, it's about going down and centering and being down into the earth. So I make sure my feet are flat on the ground, which they're often not. So I have to put my feet on the ground, and I want to bring my center of gravity back. And I want to be able to feel my body, because a big part of our humanities is our bodies. We think of this as head work or maybe heart work, but we forget about the body. We joke that we like to think of ourselves as humans as like a brain on a stick. The stick just sort of carries our brain around, and we think and we talk and we do things, but really we're as much a body as a brain. And so, for me, it's taking a deep breath, it's settling into my chair or onto my feet. It's feeling my legs against the chair. It's feeling my arms against my side, maybe my hands on the top of my legs, getting back into my body. It actually creates a lot more space for my brain to kind of settle, rather than just like increasing the pressure of like, now you really have to pay attention to what they're saying. It's like, okay, maybe not try so hard. Although trying, like, being too intense is like one of my personal challenges. So this may not be true for everyone, but for me, feet on the floor, feel myself in the chair, remembering to breathe. All of a sudden, I can allow my attention to return to the person rather than trying to force it. That's really helpful for me. That's like kind of my go-to move these days, which is really helpful. And it feels better for me too. Instead of being like this, I'm like, oh, okay, I can relax. I can be here. I can be comfortable, and enjoy the moment. Because I think, like you talk about with flow, people know that flow feels good, generally speaking, right? And that's a big sign for me that I'm doing something right, is like when I'm relaxed and I'm calm and I'm breathing and I'm having fun, or I'm at least enjoying or appreciating the moment, as opposed to like working really hard to like do a thing.
Yeah.
That's like a sign that I've lost my presence, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And I have a question, and it has a two-part kind of thing. So sometimes like we are in the present and everything, and the coachee is just not helping you. Is the coachee is not in the present with you. It's just like so. Sometimes as a coach, especially as a beginner as a coach, you get to feel like, come back, let's focus with me. I'm just like, be present. I'm present with you. Focus with me, please, for the love of God. You know. So that's especially at the beginning. So how does Andrea deal with that? Like when she faced that before, have she faced that? And if she did, like how did you deal with that? And what techniques did you use to make that client be present with you back again? So how did you deal with that emotion, and then how you brought back the client to being present?
Yeah, I mean, I think, how do I deal with that emotion, right? Like, I think that is a thing that may not be obvious to newer coaches, that like you're having that emotion, and it's not just about fixing the situation so that your emotion calms down, but like actually, to your point, you have to settle the emotion first, and then you can maybe do something about it. So that's really important. And that like is a function of presence, I think, is like being aware of your own experience and being able to settle your emotions on your own. And that's its own practice, right? Which is, my emotions are my responsibility. I don't need to like do a thing to change them. So that's one really great point that you bring up. And then I think two or three things. One is, if I'm really present, it invites someone else to be present. If I'm poking at them with questions and trying to pull them, that's not like a great way for somebody else to like allow themselves to come into presence. And especially when we're working on challenging things that make people uncomfortable often, right? That's what they're paying us for many times. I have to be able to be extra present and have extra capacity so that they can sort of relax into that and come, like they need, it's like a dog, right? If there's like a scared dog, you're not like yanking on the dog to like come to you. You can like be really quiet, be really still. The dog starts to relax and maybe come a little bit closer to you. And it may be something like that where we increase our capacity and then they feel welcomed into the presence. And then sometimes I think it is actually doing the nervous system work with them. I'll say, hey, like, do you want to join me for like a few deep breaths? Or do you want to do a centering exercise if that's something that is a part of our practice already? And oftentimes they're like, oh yeah, I guess we should do that. And then we do it together, reminds them how to be present, how to settle their own nervous system, maybe how to settle or feel their own emotions so that can be quieted instead of shoving it away. How do we bring that in? You know, and I think having the confidence as a coach to see that, to stop what's happening, to take the time, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes or as long as it takes, you're not going to get anywhere in a session if they're wandering all over the place and you're chasing them around the room. So, you know, I think in my early days, I was worried, well, we don't have time to stop and do all of that. And like, it's kind of weird also. And like, and now I realize that like, that's pretty foundational for somebody to be able to be in these difficult conversations is they need the skills to be able to calm themselves, and they need my presence and my calm to be able to do that. So my work first, invite them in. And, you know, sometimes it's just not going to happen for people on certain days too. And that's okay. We can talk about it. Like, what's going on? It seems like something has your attention. And sometimes it might be you end the session early because they need to go handle a thing. And sometimes it's this invitation back to presence is the thing that they needed the most. And I think being able to be flexible and say like, you know, I can roll with whatever is needed in this moment. And I trust that I can figure it out. And no, we don't always get it right, but the more we try, I think the better we get at it.
I think exactly what you said. So I have a question, and it's something that's also personal with me. It happened with me. I don't know if it happened with you or not. Just tell me if it did. So at the early start as a coach, I wanted to be so focused on the present and in the now and everything that sometimes I kind of forget like the past sessions. I kind of forget or like the future goals and stuff like that. I'm so focused on the present. So would you please like tell us what is the thin line when you are really merely like present, being present, and the other side, which is like you disconnect entirely from the past or the future. You know, as a coach, we are mapping the whole world, the whole map area for the coachee. But like as a start as a coach, you want to be focused and present to the point that sometimes you forget these. So where do you think is the thin line or that line that differentiates between being present and or just being focused on that territory of the map, and you forget about that and forget about that and just like you forget to link? Have you ever been in that situation before?
Yeah, I guess my question to you is, was it a problem when you did that?
That's a very good question. Well, to me as a coach, it started to be like, maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe it did, maybe I can do it better in a better session in a better way and stuff like that. So is it actually a problem if it's not a problem with the session or the progress of the coaching?
I mean, I don't know. I would say like, if it's not a problem, then it's fine. If it doesn't seem like it's like harming the client or it's harming the outcome of the work together, then I think it's fine. If you feel like you're so caught up in the moment that you're not making progress that the client wants to make or something like that, then yeah, like you might want to reconsider it. But it seems like it might be like one of the things it could be is like escape from something. So if as a coach, I'm finding I'm so, I don't know if fixated is the right word, but I'm so absorbed in the current moment that it's keeping me from doing the things I want to do, I would probably ask a couple of questions for myself, which is that true? Like, is it actually hurting? Like, is being in this moment like actually causing a problem or not? Maybe not. And if it is, like, what am I avoiding? Like, do I not know am I not confident in where I'm leading this client or where this client's leading me or in the work that we're creating together? Is it not clear? Is it not right? Like maybe we said we were doing a thing that actually doesn't feel right anymore. And maybe that's a thing that I would need to address and see what happens then with presence or not. But I don't know that it's always a problem. I actually, the way that I coach is I actually write 1-year programs for my clients. So I can envision them at least a year out, sort of call ourselves like human visionaries. Like we see the next version or the next version of our clients. And the program that we write is developmental in nature, but it's like, if you are able to do these things, if you have these competencies, you'll be able to do the things that you say you want to do. We don't work so much on goals, like doing specifically X, Y, Z, but these are the observable outcomes. These are the competencies you'll be able to consistently demonstrate. So for me, that's sort of the long-term plan that I hear you talking about is that, and that's actually written. So I don't have to kind of worry about forgetting it. I can always like refer back to it. And when I really feel a client, I can be with them in the moment, and I can also see like this next version of them, like not really like their potential, but sort of like, it's almost like what's already there that we're just helping bring out into the world more. So actually being very present in the moment lets me see more and more glimpses of those things that we're like bringing into the light a little bit. So as long as I feel very solid in my vision of them and their vision of what they want to be, really, which is what that's based on, and their way of being in the world, then being in the moment with them is a perfect way to work with that, because we can notice it and we can encourage it, and we can, do all the things that we do as coaches. But it's in those little moments that those way of being shifts happen. It's not in, okay, now you need to do the homework. And yeah, we do homework, we do reading, but it's those moments that you really can see what's happening, and they can feel the difference. And those are the moments that are going to replicate as leaders or in their families. We're leadership coaches, but we talk about their personal lives at least as much as work, because as coaches know, like the way that you show up is the way that you show up. It doesn't really matter if it's like at work or with your kids or your partner or whoever. So, and same as with your coach, it's the same thing, right? So, and they get to try on these new things, and they get to like show things that they might not show in other parts of life. And when they, kind of crack it open, we can be like, yes, that's the beautiful thing about you, in that safe space. Then being so present in that moment, I think is perfectly fine.
Amazing. Like I have like a million questions, but I know I've taken the floor so much from Sarah. So I'm gonna put the mic back on to Sarah. Hopefully have some time extra so I can ask you more. But thank you for the answer. It was an amazing answer. Thank you. Sarah,
Okay.
back to you.
No worries. Thank you so much. Okay, now it's my turn, Qasim. Just kidding. So, Andrea, I am an EQ assessor and emotional intelligence, and I have to ask this question. Part of what we do when we help clients be aware of their surroundings and what's going on around them is work on emotional awareness. Do you see that emotional awareness is actually correlated with presence? And to what extent would emotional awareness actually affect our ability to be present in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. So much of our internal experience is feeling emotions, avoiding emotions, being stuck on emotions. It's so much of what's happening. And for some people that's very obvious, and for other people it's not. Like for me, I am not someone who's naturally very in touch with my emotions. Like I have to like dig around and find them. Even after practicing for many years. and what I found is that some people are just like that. And some people, like, they can tell you all the things right away, or they have all the feelings, they might not have all the words right away. So I think, you're totally right. And with almost all of my clients, we work on emotional intelligence very early on, as a part of the foundations, because just like I mean, it's very connected to your nervous system, right? Which is like how we operate, and our bodies and our emotions are so interconnected. If we don't know how we're feeling, or we don't know what we're trying to not feel, then we can't understand how our behavior is being driven by that. So learning to say, oh, what is that? Oh, this is what I'm feeling. Being able to name it, being able to actually feel it. We did a class last year on managing emotions. I have a lot of questions for you about this, actually, as an EQ expert. But one of the things that we were so astounded by is that so much of the emotional intelligence that we found was like, name your emotion, but it wasn't how do you actually feel it, and what happens when you feel it, and what is the fear around actually feeling the emotion and letting it go all the way through. And what we found was that so many people were afraid of feeling a thing that they didn't want to feel because they thought they would feel that way forever. Well, then I'll just feel sorry for myself forever, or I'll feel sad endlessly and I'll become a miserable person. Or, if I'm angry, then I'll just, it'll be the worst thing that ever happened. Instead of, what we've learned through science, which is that most emotions last for like 90 seconds. But we can spend 10 years of our lives avoiding feeling that feeling for 90 seconds because we think it's going to last forever. So some of this bringing in some science and some practice. So we will often have people like try feeling for 10 seconds when we're with them, and we can kind of bring them back. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And then they're like, yeah, but it's done now. It went away. Well, maybe it went away and maybe you just felt it all the way through, which most of us have never done because it feels too scary and too dangerous. So that's the thing that we're working on a lot with presence is, what are we avoiding feeling, or what are we stuck in feeling? And can we actually learn how to feel it all the way through so that we can be present instead of being in resistance to that emotion? And then, when we're talking about it from maybe a more coaching perspective, or just being with another person perspective, what comes up for me? Am I shoving it away? Am I pushing it down? Am I letting it run wild? Am I letting myself feel it? Am I noticing it? What am I doing, and how is that helpful or not helpful? Maybe it's just happening in the situation. And what needs to happen? How can I so it might be oh, I need to take a break. Or I didn't hear what you said because I was thinking and feeling and doing all the things that, I think as a younger coach, we think we have to be there every second and we can't admit that we missed a thing, but it is actually much more connecting to say, I didn't understand what you said, or I was thinking about the other thing that you said. Can you go back and say that again? And I remember thinking that was a really terrible way to be a coach. And now I realize that actually telling people that I want to know what you said, and I care enough about it to go back and say, and risk looking stupid and say, tell me again, I care about you, I care about what you're saying, is actually one of the more connecting things we can do in relationship to another person. And so I try to do that a lot because I don't know, I lose track of things all the time, but I want to be with them, so I want them to know that I care and that it matters to me.
Okay. What you actually said actually triggered another question that I would really love to ask. When we're facing this loop of difficult emotions over and over and over again, how can we stay focused on the present? And how can we stay present?
So one of the ways that I talk about emotions is we think about them almost like landmines, right? So when we're going through life, we don't always have time to process all of our emotions in the moment, right? You're in a meeting, something happens, your kid is freaking out, you're in traffic, whatever is going on. So we often compartmentalize, right? We set these emotions aside. But mostly what happens is that we never go back to them. And it's almost like we've buried all these emotions all over the place, and we have to keep track of where they are, what they are, don't step on that one, stay over here. And it takes so much energy and awareness to like actually not get involved with all of those emotions, that it really takes us away from presence. When we do our, kind of think of it as like emotional homework or housekeeping, we can set our emotions aside, but we have to go back and like tend to them, feel them, notice them, learn from them, work with them, however you want to do that, so they don't overwhelm us. So I'm not sure if that exactly answers your question, but I think doing that housekeeping is an important part of being able to be in the moment, because it's not shoving it away forever, and it's not shoving it away on a giant pile of other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when you regularly clean out the closet, like you know that you can like put a few things in there and you can clean it out like on the weekend. It's kind of like that. So we actually encourage people to set aside very specific time to feel their feelings. And it might be like 10 minutes and it might be longer, but you can go through the process of set feet on the floor centering, take a deep breath, name the feeling, feel the feeling, set the timer, right? Come back, feel your feet, take breaths, coming back into the world. And I think learning confidence about that I can transition into a feeling and I can transition back into the real world is a really important part of that. Otherwise, it just feels too big and scary and we never get around to it. And then the closet starts exploding with stuff and you're just always trying to hold the door shut. And I'm getting like lost in my metaphors, but hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely, makes perfect sense. I would love to ask you about something. I think that, mashallah, you have a very, very great experience when it comes to the organizational context of experience. How would the lack of presence when it comes to the organizational context create challenges to the people and the organization, whether when it comes to leadership or the team as a whole?
Can you explain that a little bit more?
So basically, let's say that when it comes to the context of leadership and teams, how would the lack of presence affect them? Whether maybe, let's say, on a performance level, or what challenges or obstacles can it create to the people in the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think of teams and organizations and leaders as just people in a often more stressful context. Not always. Home can be stressful too. But you know, we have this thing like when we go to work, we're not going to be the same person that we are at home, or we're like there's this whole new set of challenges, and I kind of don't think that that's true. We're just the same people all the time. So just like our kids want our attention and they want to be with us, and those maybe we have a moment at dinner where our whole family is around and everybody's having a good time and everybody's listening to each other and connecting, and it feels so good. You know, all of these like universal human experiences, whether it's like connecting with family, religious ritual, weddings, birth, you know, all the things that we do, they all have this like element of presence of like, it's the only thing that's happening in the world. And I think that we have to remember that that is a thing at work too, right? We do not turn into robots the moment we like walk into work and suddenly it's all about efficiency and goals and things like that. We still have to connect. We still have this tribal element of who we are as people. And, you know, when the head of the tribe is with you and understands you and can connect with you and can be in a moment with you and make you feel like you matter, that's no different from if it was thousands of years ago or if it's you sitting in a conference room talking about your performance. And I think when leaders don't do that, when they're focused on strategy and, I don't know, execution and all the businessy things, and we forget it's all about the human thing. The human things are the thing. Strategy and competition and goals and metrics and performance and all of that, it's just a bunch of stuff on top of the human stuff. So if your foundational human connections are not working as a leader, everything else gets a lot harder. And then everybody starts, well, how do we do this? And how do we negotiate? And how do we motivate? And how do we get, you know, how do we use money to get people to do things better? It's just overcomplicating an abstraction, I think. And when you can connect to someone on a human level with presence, encourage their presence, you don't need all the bells and whistles and MBA stuff and consultant things. You can figure things out in a simpler way. You know, I've noticed your performance has changed lately. What's going on for you? I'm worried. Something going on at home? Is your team not getting along well? Like, how can we work this out together? Is very different from you're on a performance improvement plan. I want to see your output go up. Let me be very clear about what needs to happen here. It doesn't mean there can't be boundaries. It doesn't mean that performance doesn't matter. That stuff does matter, but most of those business abstractions don't actually solve problems. They just sort of like become a more impersonal way of dealing with problems. And my personal opinion about all of this is that we were taught from the Industrial Revolution to be distant from our people, right? That I can only do the hard work of leadership if I don't care about my team. Otherwise, how could I fire them? How could I give them difficult feedback? Almost like empathy and boundaries are one thing. If I care about them, they'll walk all over me. If I don't care about them, I will have all the control and I will be able to like run the business and like do well. Everyone will do well. Doesn't mean we have bad intentions, but we were taught this for hundreds of years. So when we can go back beyond hundreds of years and go back thousands of years to what it really means to be human together, we can connect. And this is the big thing I'm thinking about a lot right now, which is empathy, compassion, and boundaries are separate. And we can really care about someone and also make the decision that this isn't the right job for them, this isn't the right company for them, whatever. They're not together. And I don't know that anybody necessarily like says, oh yeah, they're together, but our behavior is such that it sort of reveals that belief that many of us hold. So when we can start to experiment with that and say, like, what if I could have empathy and hold a boundary? The boundary actually becomes a less forceful thing. Like sometimes I think about people with boundaries and they're like, okay, I'm putting this boundary up. I'm going to say no to stuff. I'm going to not overcommit. I'm going to tell people they can't do all the things. It takes a lot of energy and effort. It's kind of like that, like holding the emotion door shut. There's so much wasted energy. And we can say, oh, I totally understand where you're coming from. I may not agree. I may not think it's right for my team or me or whatever. But I get that. I had an experience last week with a close friend who was worried about getting a COVID vaccine. And intellectually, I want to be like, what's wrong with you? So many people want this opportunity in the world and you're lucky enough to have it. And it's something you can do for public health and all of these things. Anyways, but I didn't, and I was able to be present with her and hear her concerns, one of which was that her brother died from medications a year ago that were supposed to be safe. And so now she's questioning all of these things. And I was able to be like, oh, that totally makes sense. It doesn't mean that I'm going to hang out with her in an unsafe way if she's unvaccinated, but it doesn't mean that I can't listen to her or I would have to then go along with her way of things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I am a firm believer. You couldn't have said it better, actually. I think having experienced presence in the company and I'm working for at the moment, it created a very different level of connection and communication with the people around us. I know that we're running out of time, but there's one more question I'd like to ask you. Being present in this moment and with all of her senses and feelings, if Andrea has one more thing to share about presence with us today, what would it be?
I think personally, one of the things that I have a tendency to do is to think we don't have time to get into presence. We don't have time to get into connection, especially when I'm in like super business mode. I run my company and I also coach. So sometimes it's like when I'm with clients, it's like, oh, like you're in presence, it's great. And then when I need to like get stuff done at work, it's like do all the things. And I'm like, business person. And I have to really remember that, like, especially when we're really busy, take the time to connect. Ask the questions about what's going on for somebody. Ask questions about the weekend. How's your family? What's going on? And even if it takes, 10 minutes of the hour we have together, it's going to be fun. It's going to be connecting. It's going to build the strength of our relationship. And then every time I'm surprised that the 50 minutes that follows are like way more effective than they would have been had we just jumped right into work. So I'm always trying to remind myself, like, take that time to connect, to settle into presence, to take those deep breaths, to remember I have a body and it's there for a reason. All of these things, it feels like there's no time, but there's always time.
I am loving what you're saying, and Sarah, that was a wonderful question, and I have a million questions, but one more question before I open the door for the audience, because I know once I do that, I won't have my chance again. So I wanted to ask you personally, if Andrea was in then working in the chaos and everything, with life basically, just like running and everything, all of that, what would a person do or say to Andrea in any way that can help her get back to her presence and just connect with herself? What would that be?
For me personally, you mean? It's a great question. I'm trying to think about the people that do that for me. I think it's really the people that are the most present themselves that like invite me into presence. I'm trying to think of things that people say or do, and I can't really think of anything, but it's those people that you can feel. For me, it's like a very felt sense sort of a thing. But when you can feel that they're in the moment, whether they're interacting with me or not, it could be somebody that's walking by on the street and they're not looking at their phone. They're walking, they're looking, you can tell they feel the sun or they feel the breeze, or they're noticing the trees, or they're noticing people or whatever. And that is always an invitation back to presence for me. My daughter may do it in like somewhat more aggressive ways, but like she's always just so into the thing that we're doing, whether it's reading a book or playing outside or whatever it is. And like, oh, that's the reminder to me. Oh, I can be there. They can do that. I can be there too. So I think for me, it's just like being with other people that are present. And maybe that's why it works in coaching too. When we're present, it invites other people back to presence versus some magical coaching thing that we say. If that's a thing, then I don't know what it is yet. Maybe one of our attendees can teach me.
Amazing. No, I actually agree with you, and that's wonderful. Thank you so much for answering this question. It was enlightening. Okay, so guys, I'm sorry for taking so much of your time. You can have your questions now. Finally, okay, you can do it. So, Zamzam, would you like to have the honors to read our first question from the attendees, and then I'll take the second?
No worries. Thank you so much. So the first question coming in from Shaima, she's asking, how could you mention in the presence, especially with all the internal and external distraction? I think she means how could you stay present, especially with the internal and external distractions?
Let's see. I think it's noticing the distractions more than anything and not expecting we'll stay in perfect presence. Kind of like we talked about with the meditation, is like noticing and continuing to come back and practicing. And I think sometimes there's so many ways we can practice. I like to have a lot of fun with my clients and get really creative in how we can practice. But I had a client who was a very seasoned leader in his early 60s, I want to say, and his presence practice was actually playing with his grandkids on the ground. Not like reading them a book on the couch or at the table or anything, but like getting on the ground with the kids and experiencing what it's like to play in that kind of way. And for some people it's dance, or it's hiking, or walking meditation, moving, whatever it is. It's like, it doesn't have to feel like work. It can feel, you just have to be able to feel. So, and you're more likely to practice, I think, when it's fun, or when it's different, or when it's something that feels good to you. And I mean, that's different for everyone. So we'll often collaborate about, like, what does it mean to do that, and practice that in a way that we can notice what's happening internally, notice what's happening externally, but not necessarily fixate on it. Like, if something is crashing through the wall of your office, you don't necessarily want to like stay super focused on the person. That's actually an important thing to notice. But if every time a car is going by, I'm like losing my attention, then I may want to practice something like in a noisier environment where I can be engaged and in flow. And it doesn't have to be the hardest thing for you either. So if you love to draw, and you like to draw and you normally draw in your house where it's quiet, then maybe you open the window for a while until you can, like, you get distracted, and then you realize you can't keep your focus and you can keep your presence. And then maybe you go somewhere where it's louder and noisier and kind of work your way up to it. But you don't need to immediately go do the hardest thing in the hardest place in order to practice dealing with distractions. And same with the internal things too, right? If there's lots of thoughts and emotions when you're dealing with very difficult topics, then practice somewhere easier. Work your way up to it. We don't throw kids straight into university. Like, they learn a little bit at a time. And I think as adults, we have a tendency to want to make things too hard for ourselves too quickly. And we should be able to learn this. We should be able to do this. I don't think so. I think we should keep it fun and something we want to keep practicing.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have two questions. I'm gonna ask one. It's written here in the private. It says, I'm a mother of three, and I don't know, but if there's something called as negative being in presence, because spending so much time with the kids, like they're in the presence all the time. Is there such a thing as being present might be negative effect? And if yes, how can I sometimes just leave that space and just focus a bit on the future, especially when I'm living with the kids all the time? Because she's a single mother of three. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, a mother of three is a hero in my mind. And you know, I think also people tend to underestimate the value and practice of that parenting or any experiences at home bring. We think that might be different from a leader running a company of 5,000 people, and I don't think it is. I actually think it can often be harder. So that's one thing. Two, I guess, is just depends on, you know, kind of my question to you, which is like, is it a problem, and how is it a problem? And if it's hard to be focusing on the future, is that hurting you or your situation? Is there some way that you're not planning, or you're not able to take care of things in the way that you want to? Is there something about the future that you're not wanting to deal with? Then there might be some emotions that we want to sit with and say, like, well, if I'm very worried about the future, then what's happening for me? What fear is there? What am I wanting to not feel? I find when I'm avoiding doing things, there's almost always an emotion under there that I need to find and figure out what's going on with. And then all of a sudden doing the thing isn't so hard. It's more that, like, I didn't realize there was something in the way of me doing the thing. So if it's dealing with something in the future, if that's the example, I'm not sure if it is or not, then, you know, what about the future is bringing up emotions for you? And, you know, how do you want to work with those? But I think it's actually kind of a superpower to be able to be super present with 3 children. So I think it's it's great to hear that's a skill.
It's true, true. I mean, this is a shout out for all the moms, whether single or married. Shout outs, you're doing a great job. It's really the hardest and most amazing job you can ever do in life. So yeah, thank you for answering that. Zamzam, you can take.
Okay, I think that's kind of a similar question to the first question we asked. Dr. Anwar is asking, how can I create this presence that you're talking about or that you're mentioning?
I think it comes back to awareness of the body, awareness of thoughts, awareness of emotions. It can be awareness of, why or purpose. We think that is sort of like the spiritual dimension. And so some of it is bringing my attention here, allowing my emotions to be here, allowing my body to be here, and practicing feeling all of those things as they happen versus over intellectualizing them or thinking about the story behind them. And it is sort of a little bit of taking a more childlike perspective. If I see someone raising their hand like this, my story might be that they're being aggressive, or they're wanting to interrupt, or they're wanting to stop me, or they're wanting to silence me, or there's so many places you can go with that intellectually. But a child might just say, oh, somebody just put their hand up in the air. So when we can experience something without all of the story, it doesn't mean that story is not useful, but when we notice that there are all these things that we could be thinking that could be part of our story, then we're bringing ourselves back to that moment by saying, oh, all of those things could be true, but I'm noticing the intellectualization around it instead of just the experience of watching somebody's hand go up. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does.
Okay.
It actually triggered a question in me. Would you say that if someone works on their emotional intelligence, that their presence is going to develop over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so much of what's going on for us internally are our emotions, or our intellectual responses to our emotions, as we talked about a little bit. When we can get clearer on what's happening, and when we're more skillful in dealing with those emotions, we don't have to run around in circles all the time, which quiets it all down. Oh, I notice I'm feeling sad. Okay, now I can pay attention to you. Instead of like, but I should be fine, and I need to do the thing, and I need to because I'm too afraid to feel sad. So and then all of a sudden I'm lost and I have no idea what's going on. And they have no idea where I am. They're like, you're here, but you're not here. So I think the better we can get at our emotions, and the quieter things are, and the easier it is to be present.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
We have a question. It says, I'm a leader of a company, and I tend to label myself as more into the present, as mentioned. That sometimes causes a trouble of planning the future and stuff like that. Like I live day by day, I look forward for the day, and I plan the day in the day. So, what would you advise me? Like healthy routines, any action steps that can help me to expand my present span to be more than just the day by day. It would be like more.
Yeah, I think about sort of my strategic thinking as being a different mode than execution or presence or work where there can be flow. So personally, I like to really separate that work. So I'm a big calendar person, a scheduler person, a routine person. I didn't used to be, but over the years, I found that by planning and structuring my time and my activities, I'm able to cultivate more experiences where I can just be present because I think switching back and forth is really hard. And even if people say, well, I like to have freedom, I like to decide what I'm going to do on any given day, you're having to switch between what do I need to do longer term? What do I need to do shorter term? Now do it. And you're kind of getting thrown all around instead of today I decided I was going to do a coaching session, follow up on the thing, and do my reading about coaching and another thing. And in the morning, I'm going to do some exercise, eat breakfast, take a few moments, drink water, settle into my desk 10 minutes early. Like I've learned over the years the things that help me to perform better as a person and cultivate the kind of things that I want. Being able to be relaxed, being able to be open, being able to be in presence, being able to be grounded. So I can plan to do those things, and then I just have to do them on the day or in the hour. And even if you're not sure what you're going to do for the next hour, you can sit down for 5 minutes and say, this is what I'm going to do. Use your strategic brain. And then you can just be in the moment of doing the thing. I think for me, like understanding that how hard that switching is was really helpful in how I was able to be more productive. And maybe that's the link between like presence and productivity and efficiency and actually being able to get stuff done is how do I separate those things? And I like can take it to an extreme where actually at the end of my week, I have a lot of things I do very regularly. So I have like regular times each week where I work on parts of my business or I do certain kinds of work because I'm more creative in the morning and maybe I'm more open to difficult things in the afternoon or whatever your own cycle is. And so on Fridays, I look back at the week and I say, what works, what didn't work, what could be better in the future? And I adjust my schedule for the next couple of weeks. And I'm always making those adjustments for 10 or 15 years now, so that I can learn the ways that I can do the work where I need to be the most present at the times when I can be the most present, and I can create an environment where it's easier for me. Like I'm not trying to make it as hard as possible. I'm trying to make it as easy as I can. Like we're all working a lot. We've got so many demands on our time and we're trying to take care of our health and we're trying to take care of our parents or whatever is going on. Like let's make it easy. And so for me, a little bit of rhythmic planning helps me do that a lot, I think.
And as you mentioned before, it's all about the practice of doing that and like getting back into the attention to the present. Yeah. We have Amy is mentioning like I'm a yoga instructor and being present is what we do actually in yoga with the breathing and the zen and everything and the postures. She's asking you on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you believe that practicing yoga can actually help in bringing the attention back to the moment and building that brain muscle?
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, so this is a tricky question, I think, because as a yoga instructor, you understand how being in the body with the breath, going through the poses brings you into the moment. But what I found, at least in the US, is that people do yoga as a sport. And they very often don't understand the element of presence in yoga. They're trying to do the pose, they're trying to be athletic, they're trying to get fit, they're doing all the things. And so you can be like a very advanced yoga person and be totally missing the point of physical, mental, emotional presence in yoga. So I think the answer is 10 or 1, because I'll often talk with people like, oh, okay, like, let's try doing some yoga as a part of your practice. And they're like, oh yeah, like I do power vinyasa like all the time. And I'm like, not that. That's not what we're talking about here. Doing yin yoga or restorative yoga, or even just like 3 yoga poses that takes 2 minutes. That's what I'm wanting people to recalibrate on with yoga, because there is such a beautiful physical element to it, as opposed to a lot of people for meditation, just thinking about not thinking so much is very difficult. So I really love yoga for that. But I think I have to really make sure that they're clear on what we're trying to do with yoga, and then sort of recalibrate there. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's basically what is it used for? It's more like, yeah, if it's an exercise to get it done with, it would be like one, as you mentioned. And if it's that, it's 10. Okay, so we have 10 minutes remaining. And I feel I would love to open the space for our audience if they would like to ask questions or share comments with their life. How would you feel about that?
That sounds great.
Okay. So guys, feel free if you want to share a question, feedback, or comment, just click on the raise hand button, and Nuran or Sarah Fudi will be helping you to unlock. Am I clear?
I lost you for a moment. It sounds like
Ah,
you're
yeah.
sorry.
So I was saying, until anyone like someone raised their hand and everything, I would like to ask you as well, since you mentioned before that you wanted to also, you're looking forward for the learning. So it's only fair to give you a chance as well. Like if you wanted to ask us, and this is like the entire audience, our co-researchers and everyone, we're happy to answer. What would you like to know? What would you like to ask in this specific present moment?
I would love to ask what people's favorite experiences of presence are these days. Maybe not. The world is different everywhere right now. Where are you finding moments of presence in your life, and how are they changing your or affecting your overall experience of life these days?
Wow, that's a very good question.
It might be kind of a big question for 8 minutes
It's a
left,
very big
but
question, yeah. But I think, let me see if I got it right. If it's like, what is one of the greatest experience that in the present that helps you and affecting you in the daily life with this situation so far?
yeah, like what are the little moments of presence? Like our lives may not be as big and shiny as they sometimes as they were before COVID times, but what moments of presence are you finding in this quieter life, that are helping you or making you feel connected or making you feel meaning in your life? I can start off by throwing out one, and maybe you can share two. For me, I live in San Francisco. I live in the city. I have a small yard behind my house, and it was not very nice before COVID, and we've fixed it up, and we have a garden, and getting out in the dirt in the sun with the water is a thing that I didn't really make time for before. And now, before we spoke, I went out for 5-10 minutes and checked on my garden. And those like little moments are taking the place of world travel and amazing meetings and all sorts of big things, but are just as or maybe even more beautiful, and are really helping me to be grounded and to appreciate life, with all of the changes that have been going on.
Wow, okay. That's actually very, makes sense actually. And it really, I can imagine the like the small things with the sunlight, and it can really help you like especially with the earth and the nature, it really helps connecting.
Yeah,
Um,
what for
yeah,
you?
if I'm allowed, Sarah, please don't kill me. This is my last thing, I swear. So you can take the floor after.
The
Um,
floor is yours.
yeah, just for this second. For me is basically two things, or like actually three things. One thing I love about staying in my room, I have like a small balcony, and I have like a see-through kind of drapes. So I love it in the morning when it's just like quiet and everything. I just like a small sunlight goes in the room. I just like sit down and just lay down on the bed, or just sit down on the bed, just like, it's like nothing else. Just staring at the walls. I just like this. These are one of the amazing moments.
Mm.
Uh, Also, sports. I'm playing now calisthenics, and I'm trying like with some moves and everything. So it really helps me like enjoying these small moments, whether it's at home or at the gym. So these moments I really appreciate. So yeah, that's it, Sarah. I swear, that's it for me. Thank you. That's yours. I love the present, but I also want to be. So I'm gonna go now.
I'm not able to submit the feedback, number one. Number two is, it was an amazing session. These were our day-to-day issues we were trying to sort out, and Andrea has sorted out so nicely. And you, both of you, Faris and Sarah, have facilitated the situation, asking wonderful questions which were in our mind. Thank you very much. But but I would like to rate it as a 100% successful event. But I'm not able to submit it. I don't know.
No worries. Thank you so much. We've got your feedback and thank you so much. Thank you so much for your feedback.
Thank you so much. And we take that feedback, verbal feedback, anywhere we can go. Yes.
Thank you
We,
so much, everyone, for attending tonight. Oh, we have another person,
yes.
Banan.
Yes, we have Banan Bassam. If you can please give her the mic for Banan Bassam. Banan, you can go.
So hi, good evening for all.
Good evening, Banan.
I would like to ask a question regarding how the feeling present, like while I'm just trying to be in present. I'm trying actually an opposite way to, because I'm organized person, I'm trying actually to manage my time. So how I can be on present at the same time, organizing my time and like fulfilling the goals that I'm trying to do it at the same day, for example. I don't know if the question is clear.
I think I understand. How do you work on being organized and being present at the same time?
Yeah, exactly. And really doing the things at the same time, being present with the people and feeling I'm trying to achieving the goals, and the goals that are very near, that they are day by day, but I want also to be present, like we all know that the life has so many challenges. So how I can like balance between the feelings on achieving the things that I want on the day, and also being present with the people, like being present with the feelings that I'm actually trying to take it from the from the outside source.
I think a couple of things, and I'll keep it quick. One is, I would, if we were coaching, I would ask about, does it have to be present or doing things? Is there a way that you can do them, that you can do that together? And to explore that a little bit, of how do you be present in pursuing your goals and not have to separate them? And if we're separating them, to be very clear about what we're trying to do and to create structures around what we're trying to do. So if I'm afraid if I want to be super present and lose track of time, like we were just talking about, then I might have a reminder pop up 10 minutes before the end of a conversation or the time, so that I can completely get lost and be present. And then also be like, oh, now I have 10 minutes to remember to wrap things up and to take the notes and carry it forward and get the action items for the next meeting and that sort of thing, versus not being present and always checking what has to happen, because I can't relax enough to be present because I'm trying to take care of all of the things. So what am I trying to take care of? And then how can I create structure so that I can relax into presence?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so unfortunately, we are at the end of our sessions today. I cannot believe it's really 90 minutes. It was amazing time, really in the present. And I really appreciate every single moment with you, Ms. Andrea. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. And this is from behalf of CoReach and everyone here, we deeply appreciate your gesture and joining us in CSR and contributing this amazing, wonderful opportunity for our Zakat Ilm. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time. And we really look forward for our future endeavors and future opportunities to collaborate even more. Thank you so much. Have a great night and good night, everyone.
Thank you for
Thank you
having me.
so
It's such an honor to join you.
Thank you. Of course, it's our pleasure, our honor. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.